What if God secures your future on a night when nothing seems to change? God's covenant meets fear and delay with a promise strong enough to carry a lifetime. A quiet camp, a man who has waited too long. Then a voice in the dark, do not be afraid, step outside. Count the stars if you can. Your story will not end in this silence. Tonight you will gain 3 anchors. First, how covenant turns fear into steady trust when timelines stretch. Second, how a lived sign and a new name reshape identity before outcomes arrive. Third, how to wait without going numb and lead your household with hope. This is not theory to admire. It is a way to walk before the day ends. The covenant is God's I will, not our I can. The promise rests on His faithfulness. Identity shifts first. A God-given name steadies you while circumstances catch up. Small, repeatable practices keep hope warm across long years. A lantern halo on a rough tent wall, while a black sky spills with uncountable stars. Lord, cover me with your peace. Give me strong faith where I lack evidence, and teach me to wait without fear under your protection. Before dawn breaks, the night opens, and the covenant is cut. What happens when God pledges Himself so your future no longer rests on your strength? In Genesis 15, God answers fear with an oath anchored in His own faithfulness. Night settles over the camp. The numbers do not add up. No child, no heir. Abram speaks the truth that keeps circling his mind. What can you give me since I remain childless? The answer does not begin with a schedule. It begins with a person. Do not be afraid. I am your shield. Then the invitation, step outside, look up, count the stars if you can. Your descendants will be like this. The math of heaven interrupts the math of lack. Small step, big shift. Abram trusts, and that trust is credited as righteousness. He does not suddenly hold a baby. He holds a word from God and finds it weighty enough to stand on. Faith here is not noise. It is rest on a voice you have learned to recognize. The scene deepens. God instructs Abram to prepare the animals for a covenant rite. Abram obeys, arranging the pieces and waiting through the heat of day. Birds of prey sweep down. Abram drives them away. As the sun sinks, a heavy sleep falls on him, a dreadful and great darkness. The future will include slavery, oppression, and years that feel longer than the night. But the promise will not break. When Abram cannot walk the aisle, God walks it alone. A smoking fire pot and a blazing torch pass between the pieces. The message is clear. If this covenant fails, let the cost fall on me. This is the turn that changes everything. The promise now rests on God's character, not Abram's capacity. The boundaries of the land are named. The timeline includes waiting, but the burden of keeping the oath belongs to God. God names fear, then grounds hope in who He is before He explains what He will do. Trust is counted as righteousness because it takes God at His word in the dark. The covenant is secured by God's action. Our part is faithful response, not heroic control. A narrow aisle of shadow between parted sacrifices while a moving glow, fire pot and torch, travels the path alone. Name the fear precisely. Write one sentence that starts, I am afraid that. Honesty opens the door to real faith. Stand under the stars, step outside, look up, and speak the promise you carry. Let wonder widen your frame. Practice the aisle. Choose one simple act that says, I trust you to carry what I cannot. Send the message, close the tab, plan the next obedience step. The point is not drama, the point is direction. Where do you need God's I will to outweigh your I can't? Which single act tonight would mark your side of the aisle? The oath walked in fire means delay cannot defeat destiny. Righteousness credited in the dark becomes obedience at dawn. When heaven sets the math, lack loses its script. A pledged future is powerful, but people still wake up with the same names. Next, God writes the promise into identity in daily life. When God changes your name, waiting learns a new posture. The covenant is marked by an embodied sign and sealed with new identities that reshape daily life. Years have passed. The tent is quiet. The last conversation left questions that time did not answer. Then God appears. I am God Almighty. Walk before me and be wholehearted. Abram drops to the ground. The promise is not new, but the moment is. God does not repeat a schedule. He rewrites identity. No longer Abram, but Abraham, father of many. The covenant is called everlasting. It will outlive Abraham's strength and travel through generations he will not meet. The words reach the household too. Sarai receives a new name, Sarah. Promise narrows and brightens. A son will come through her. Abraham laughs, part wonder, part ache, and asks for Ishmael to live under God's smile. God answers a double grace. Ishmael will be blessed, become a great nation. But the covenant path will run through Isaac. A child Sarah will bear. Grace is generous, and guidance is specific. Both truths stand without apology. Then the sign is given. The covenant will not be a private thought. It will be embodied, carried in the community, remembered in ordinary days. Abraham acts that very day. Leadership here is not dramatic speech. It is immediate obedience that turns belief into belonging. By sunset, faith has a calendar and a practice. The home now has a way to remember whose they are. The new names matter because names carry posture. Abram, exalted father, looked back. Abraham, father of many, looks forward. Sarai, my princess, kept the circle small. Sarah, simply princess, widens the circle to nations. Identity shifts before outcomes do. When God names you, He is not pretending a future. He is training a present. Identity precedes outcome. A God-given name stabilizes you while circumstances catch up. The sign turns faith from private opinion into shared belonging. It is embodied, communal, and costly enough to be remembered. Grace holds complexity. God's kindness reaches Ishmael, yet the covenant line remains through Isaac. Trust receives generosity and submits to guidance. Two fresh names pressed into warm clay, Abraham and Sarah, edges bright in the afternoon sun, beside a small household mark of the covenant. Name the name. Write the identity God is giving you in this season. Loved, sent, steady, faithful, and place it where you work. Speak it over yourself before sleep. Belonging practice. Choose one small embodied habit that reminds your household whose you are. A weekly altar moment, a one-sentence blessing at dinner, or a quiet check-in every seventh day. Act that very day. Do one concrete step that aligns with your new name. Send the message, set the boundary, start the plan. Let obedience be same day, not someday. Which label have you carried that God has already replaced? What simple practice could mark your belonging this week? A new name trains your waiting before results arrive. Belonging turns belief into rhythm you can keep. Grace can say 2 yeses and still keep one path. A new identity steadies the heart. Next, we build practices that can outlast delay and keep hope warm. What if the promise is already strong enough? And what you need now is a life that can stand with it. Simple covenant practices keep hope alive and steady when answers take time. The night after the covenant can feel like the night before it. Quiet tent, same questions. What changes first is not the calendar, but the cadence of your life. Abraham learns to live in step with what God has pledged. You can too. These practices are small by design. They do not force outcomes. They protect the heart that must carry the waiting. The star practice. Let wonder fight worry. Each evening, step outside if you can. Lift your eyes and speak the promise out loud in one sentence. God, you are faithful, You will do what you said. Abraham was asked to count the uncountable. The exercise was not math, it was memory. Wonder widens the frame that fear keeps shrinking. If clouds hide the sky, light a candle and speak the promise indoors. Keep the words short, let your ears hear your faith. The sky will not answer your how, but it will answer your who. Set a recurring reminder titled Stars, 2 minutes after sunset, and keep it for 7 days. The name practice. Live from identity before results. Identity shifts before outcomes do. Each morning, write or whisper the name God is teaching you to carry in the season. Steady, belonging, faithful, loved. Use that word when you pray and let it shape your choices. Abraham and Sarah walked with names that pulled the future into their present posture. Let your name set your stance at work, at home, in conflict. The point is not performance, it is alignment. When you stand as the named, panic loses its steering wheel. Place a small card with your word where your eyes land first, on your desk, mirror, or dashboard. The sign practice. Embody the covenant in ordinary days. A sign turns private belief into shared belonging. Choose 3 simple rhythms for your household. Weekly altar, a 5-minute pause at the same place and time. Light a candle. Thank God for one provision. Name one need. Family blessing, 1 sentence spoken over a shoulder each evening. May God's peace guard your mind and guide your steps. Honest check-in. Once a week, share 1 fear, 1 step of obedience, 1 answered prayer. Keep it gentle and brief. These are not dramatic. They are decisive. Over months, they build a memory palace where your heart can rest when feelings swing. Small signs outlast big moods. Put these 3 rhythms on a single card titled Covenant House and keep it by the door. A small stone altar by a doorway, 1 smooth pebble added each week, beside a card that reads Stars. Name, sign. Lord, guard my home with your peace. Give me strong faith to keep these small practices until they shape me. Align my days with your covenant love and steady my heart while I wait. Which one practice will you begin tonight? Stars, name, or sign? And where will you place it in your day? When rhythms hold, love can face its hardest ask. Next, we step into the moment where trust meets surrender. The miracle isn't speed. It's staying power born from a promise you didn't have to forge. God's covenant forms people who carry hope steadily through delay, so their lives become shelter for others. Covenant steadies your inner pace. You stop measuring progress by how quickly circumstances move and start measuring by how faithfully you walk. Identity outlasts pressure. A God-given name keeps you standing as loved and sent when timelines stretch and emotions swing. Live signs train courage. Small, repeatable practices turn belief into a rhythm your family can keep when the year feels long. Picture a late evening table, 1 lamp, quiet dishes, a line is spoken over the meal. May God's peace guard your mind and guide your steps. It is not dramatic, it is decisive. The room doesn't change color, but something in the air holds. The week will bring errands, bills, and maybe hard news. Yet the blessing keeps echoing, and your choices begin to align with the truth you named last night. This is covenant at street level. Oath in heaven, posture on earth. Steps in sequence. The promise you carry is older than your fear and stronger than your schedule. You were never asked to engineer the future, only to belong to the one who bound himself to you. That belonging frees your hands. You can give, forgive, and keep showing up because you are held. Hope, then, is not thin optimism. It is a practiced memory of who walks the aisle when you cannot. A small card by the doorway, 3 words in clean ink, stars, name, sign. Next to it, a smooth pebble placed on a tiny altar, and a family voice finishing a one-sentence blessing. Choose one action within 24 hours. Step outside after dark and speak your promise under the stars. Write your God-given name on a card and place it where you work. Begin a nightly one-sentence blessing at the table. Comment which you chose so we can pray and walk this covenant together. Isaac and the test of obedience. We will enter the moment when love costs most and watch how trust moves at the edge of surrender. Not to break you, but to reveal the giver who can be trusted with what you treasure. Keep your altar small and steady. The journey continues.